Today we're talking about days 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. So Zachary Carter, Dameon Pierce, and then we'll hit the undrafted free agents only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olson. You can find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. You can find all of my written work with Whole Nine Sports. Before getting into today's content, just gonna ask you to like, subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave a comment, review. Let me know what you think of the show. Let me know how I can make it better. Getting into today's content, though, we're talking about the NFL draft, of course. This is, I promise, this is going to be the last full episode of the NFL draft. But Zachary Carter to the Bengals was the pick. I like it. It was tail end of the third round, which is kind of where we should have expected him to go. Like I said, I thought he'd be anytime on day 2 is where I thought he'd be capable of going. But which he did obviously later day 2. With the Cincinnati Bengals, he's probably going to play that 3 to 5 tech spot that they like to run with so often, that Lou Anarumo defense. That's what they like having as a pass rusher there. So that's probably going to be Zachary Carter's role. Just looking at his fit and their current roster, I don't think Zachary Carter is someone that's going to start for them right away. Probably not going to start there, if at all, for another 2-3 years maybe, because right now they have BJ Hill, who last season was incredibly productive. I believe he's from NC State. He was there, the New York Giants, and then got traded before the season last season. But I think when you look at Zachary Carter, you could say he could play immediately. He's not going to be a starter, but he could play immediately as at the very worst, a rotational or a situational pass rusher, which is not a bad gig to have, especially for someone who, throughout college, his primary trait was that he's a dominant pass rusher for the Florida Gators. So you get to do that, pretty much just that. You can bring him in obvious passing downs. He's likely not going to start with BJ Hill in front of him, but I don't think they have anybody else that I'm like, hey, like Zachary Carter should be behind them. So with that defense, he's probably going to at least rotate in with both end spots and that 3 to 5 tech role. They have a 4 down line. I obviously don't see him playing that nose tackle role. He's just not. He's not a nose tackle. He's not capable of playing nose tackle right now. Maybe if he adds that weight, we see him play instead of the ends and the 3 to 5 tech. We see him play that 3 to 5 tech and inside even more as the 0 or 1 tech. So we could maybe see him do that. But I think it was a solid pick for the Bengals. I think when you're a team that was just in the Super Bowl, granted, I still have no idea how they did it, but when you're a team that just made the Super Bowl and you have the expectation now and the goal of, well, don't just make it this time, win it. One of the things you have to do is be able to consistently get a pass rush. Trey Hendrickson did a great job for the Bengals last year, but Zachary Carter's coming in, and he's going to help that pass rush, especially, again, if someone gets hurt, Zachary Carter could step in at 3 spots on that defensive line without really missing a beat. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him as well, because Lou Anarumo with the Bengals has had the tendency to drop defensive linemen back into coverage every now and then, and that's not a big strong suit for Zachary Carter. Obviously, he's known as just a rusher. He's not a refined run defender. He's not used to playing in coverage, but we're also at the point where it's this late day 2. You're adding a player who's going to contribute at all this year. That's a big plus. He's going to contribute in the future. And yeah, it wouldn't shock me if we see him drop back in coverage, especially because I think he's better suited to be the drop back in coverage guy over BJ Hill if you're dropping your 3 to 5 tech back. But also, my opinion differs a little from some people in Locked On, and you're about to hear what they had to say as we're gonna kind of go to when Zach Carter got picked with the Locked On NFL Draft live show, also featuring Jake Liskow from Locked On Bengals.
The Bengals pick is in. They don't have any problems at the quarterback position. They've got ice water in his veins, Joe Burrow. The pick is Zachary Carter, defensive tackle, from Florida. We haven't seen a lot of Florida guys go. This is a program that has not been what we thought it could be. We thought Dameon Pierce would be probably the first Gator to go off the board today. What do we see from Carter?
I like him inside, I will tell you that. I know that he has some versatility, but that was my preference when I watched him. I don't know exactly how much you can plug him in day one, but he's a guy that I think can get in there, find a role, work with the guys in front of him, and I think he can come along here in the next season or two.
You know who I bet knows? Jake Liskow from Locked On Bengals. He knows, and Kanani Stevens. That's why she's there talking to him.
He's very smart. He predicted this. He actually had this mocked up that they were going to take this pick at this point. So do you have a crystal ball? How did you figure this out?
He fits a few things that the Bengals like in their defensive linemen when you look back at their history and the kind of defensive lineman that they pick. And he has some versatility. I'm surprised by the pick. I think I had it around later in my predictive mock draft. So this is earlier than I thought it would be for Zachary Carter, but he does fit something the Bengals are looking for, which is a 5 tech who can play a little bit of 3 tech. He's going to play inside the defensive ends for the Bengals. He's not going to be an edge rusher for them, I don't think. And he should provide a little bit of versatility that they'll like. And primarily, I think what they're looking for with this pick is replacing Larry Ogunjobi. And so they're looking for a guy that's kind of a penetrator upfield more than a guy who's going to hold his ground a ton. They're looking for a one gap disruptor.
It's spring break time. It's actually after spring break time at this point. It's May 2nd. It is time to get in shape if that's something you're trying to do. Add Built Bar to your plan. It's going to help you a ton. I've been very open. I have a hardcore sweet tooth. I ate ice cream once the NFL draft ended. I was like, I'm so stressed. I'm just going to eat ice cream. But it's already coated in 100% chocolate with Built Bar. Most bars have 130 calories, just 4 net carbs, along with 17 grams of protein. Throw out the hidden stashes, the Reese's in the desk drawer, the Kit Kat in the cupboard, whatever you have, wherever you have it. I don't care. Built Bar is always coming out with new limited time flavors, and they are just so good always. You'll never get bored. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your next order. That is LOCKED, LOCKED 15 to get 15% off of your next order with Built or BuiltBar.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Now we are talking about the other Florida Gators draft pick here. It was very unfortunate. They had 3 draft picks, which is like, yay, picks. But it sucked. I was hoping for at least one more. I expected another one, but we'll talk about that later. Dameon Pierce to the Houston Texans. He was the 3rd pick on day 3. He was a very early pick on day 3. There is no reason that Dameon Pierce can't be the primary back this year in Houston, because right now, and they do have a lot of players in the backfield. They've got Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead, Dario Gunbowal, Jet Anderson, Scotty Phillips, and Royce Freeman. So they've got all those running backs. They've got a bunch of guys. But are any of them really good? I don't know. They lack someone, I think, who can be a consistent and reliable running back number 1. And Dameon Pierce could be that easily. Like there is no doubt in my mind he could be that. Also going to help ease the pressure off of Davis Mills. But what I really like about that regarding Davis Mills is you look at the running backs that I just listed. I don't think any of them are that good as pass protectors. You look at Dameon Pierce and you go, well, he's the best pass protecting running back in this draft class. So we have him there to not only take the pressure off Davis Mills by boosting the run game, but take the pressure off Davis Mills by literally taking the pressure off him by pass protecting and actually keeping the pocket cleaner than it would with pretty much any other back. So I think that's big. I also just really like the fit. Like I think that Dameon Pierce is a guy where he could fit in pretty much any scheme. There obviously might be some that fit him better, but I think he could play in any scheme, step in any scheme, and be like, okay, like we're ready to go. This is good with us. So there's that where I think he could step in and play right away. Even if he's not the primary starter, I would think if it's not Dameon Pierce, probably Marlon Mack at that point. But even then, like Marlon Mack has been better as a running back by committee type guy. So I don't think he's going to be anything special. But the Texans added Dameon Pierce, and that was good too because right after the Texans added Dameon Pierce, we started seeing a run on running backs happen, and people were like, well, good thing the Texans took Dameon Pierce here because we don't know who they would have been able to take later on in the draft. But it's a pick that I really like. I've been very vocal. Like Damian Pierce was my fourth running back in the class. I thought he was the fourth best back in the class, and primarily like because he's got such a high ceiling right now. I don't know if, or he's got such a high floor. I don't know what his ceiling is per se, but I know that his floor is a consistent contributing running back. Like I know that at the absolute worst, he is a reliable guy where he could have kind of a, I'm trying to think of some of you guys. Okay, Jaguars fans. Like he could have kind of like a Carlos Hyde type career. Carlos Hyde was a Texan, I think, at one point too. But he could have a Carlos Hyde type career where he's never going to be amazing, but he's always going to be around and he's always going to be contributing somewhere. So I think that could happen. I think he could have a better career than that because I think he's a better rusher than Carlos Hyde. Because Carlos Hyde is the type of guy where you go, I forgot who said it, but there was a saying about Carlos Hyde when he was in the draft class, and it was like Carlos Hyde's the type of guy where if you need 2 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. If you need 3 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. If you need 4 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. Like he's just going to get 3 yards per carry every single time. Damian Pierce, I think, will be a little bit better than that. I think he's got a little more wiggle than Carlos Hyde and maybe more punch. Definitely a better pass contributor. But I think you kind of just stick around and always contribute. I'm trying to think if there's another running back that I could compare him to, but there's not off the top of my head right now. It's been a long weekend. I'm completely gassed here. But, you know, I think the Dameon Pierce pick was very nice. I think that there were no Gators picks where I was like, that pick just is not a good spot for them. Where there were some places where I said, like, that pick is just not a good place for them to go. But that didn't happen with the Gators this year. You know, of course, it was only 3 Gators drafted in Kaiir Elam, Zachary Carter to the Bengals, and then Dameon Pierce to the Texans, and Kaiir, of course, went to the Bills. But we do have another opinion to give you guys because we are going to once again go back to the Locked On NFL Draft live show with Ryan Tracy, Peter Bukowski, Isaiah Stanback, Eric Crocker.
Dameon Pierce is the pick for the Houston Texans. We mentioned him earlier when we had Brandon Olson in to talk about the Florida players. Interesting thing about Dameon Pierce, his mom signed him up for football when he was 7 against his wishes. He didn't want to play. And now he is a 4th-round pick for the Houston Texans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Interesting also, he was not even the number 1 running back on the Florida team, but ended up with the most carries on that squad. This is Nick Caserio getting tougher. This is a big dude. Ryan, what do you think? What did you think about Pierce?
My favorite aspect of him is he is number 6 in this draft class in terms of forcing missed tackles, and that is running hard. Straight ahead athlete. His lateral agility isn't quite the best, but that's all right. He does what he does. He's going to hit that hole, and he's going to make you drag him down. I think that helps a Houston offense that needs to kind of find itself, needs to help Mills out a little bit more as well, right? So I like this fit.
I think when you start looking at some of the players Houston Texans have drafted so far, Derek Stingley Jr., love it. Kenyon Green, love it. Jalen Petrie, John Mechie, Harris, and now Pierce. I mean, this is kind of a dominating class that they brought in so far.
The NFL draft is done if you did happen to make any bets and you did happen to win. Like if you bet if you bet that Malik Willis would still be there after pick like 9.5, congratulations. If you bet 1 QB in the first round, congratulations, because that was wow. No running backs in the first round. Congratulations. And I hope you took a deep exhale because the Jets were trying to trade into the first round to draft Breece Hall. But again, not what happened. BetOnline.net is where you could have all things as your number 1 source for all of your betting needs and sports information. I've been using BetOnline for years, made myself some money during the NFL draft, which is really fun. It's not just basketball, not just football, not just baseball, not just boxing, everything they have there. Not even just sports though, reality TV, award shows, finances, politics, whatever you want to do. Just so much there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn all the trends and action. Check out BetOnline. It's where the game starts. To wrap up today's show, we are talking about Florida Gators undrafted free agents. I'm gonna go in the order that I saw them signed. So there's just three, but I'm going in the order again that I saw them get signed after the draft, which means first up is Jeremiah Moon. He was a quick signing. Like you could tell the Ravens were interested in him. He signed with the Baltimore Ravens almost immediately after the 2022 NFL draft. And this is an insane fit. I don't know how else I could say it. And here's the thing with Jeremiah Moon, I don't know if he'll play this year. I don't know if he'll even make the roster or if he'll be a practice squad player. But when you sign with the Baltimore Ravens, there are historically very few teams that are better at developing defensive players than the Baltimore Ravens. And there are also very few teams that historically have been more flexible for players that have a multi-position skill set. Like Jeremiah Moon is someone who could play the edge and he could play off-ball linebacker. And I think he'll play more edge than anything else. But the Baltimore Ravens are going to go, well, it doesn't matter what you play more. We're just going to play wherever you excel more than anything else. And also with the Baltimore Ravens, I think you can pretty safely say Jeremiah Moon is going to be someone that we see play special teams week in, week out and make plays on pretty much maybe not like their PAT team or their field goal team, but I think every other team will see. I think every other facet of special teams will see Jeremiah Moon participate in and probably make an impact just with his general height, weight, speed freak that he is. I think we'll at least see him make an impact somewhere, even if it's special teams. And again, might not be this year, but somewhere down the line, I think that we'll see Jeremiah Moon find some success. The next one that I saw was Jean Delance, which I was a little surprised about because earlier I said that I was expecting at least one more Florida Gator to get drafted. It was Jean Delance that I expected, and I get it. A lot of Gators fans, oof, my lordy, you guys hate Jean Delance. But here's the thing: when you look at the NFL, it doesn't matter if you were successful in college or not. It matters what you put on tape. And what Jean Delance put on tape was that he is an athletic offensive tackle with a ton of length. That was pretty poorly coached. So you look at that, and he's got a ton of work to do as a technician, of course. He's probably gonna have to add some weight, but you look at that and you go, well, we could mold him into someone that's going to be very helpful for this team. So I thought that a team would just take a flyer on him in the 6th or 7th round and just go, guess what? When you look at a 6th or 7th round pick, it's pretty rare that they ever even really contribute to a team. And I think that's fair to say. Like the average NFL career is 3.3 years, whether you're a 1st round pick, 7th round pick, undrafted, it doesn't matter. If you take all of it, it averages out to 3.3 years. So 6th, 7th round picks, a lot of times just go ghost. Is what it is. But Jean Delance is someone who you could put on the practice squad and you could develop him. He is with the Chicago Bears now, who, by the way, they have had a strong undrafted free agency class, and something tells me it's going to get better during this week. Specific linebacker that they're going to add, but not from Florida. But Jean Delance is someone who, with the Bears, won't play early, but their offensive line is terrible. So he's got an actual decent shot at making the roster, and then just working on developing from there on out is on him and that coaching staff and just making him better. Final Gator undrafted free agent that we know at this point has signed, Malik Davis, running back / slot receiver. I guess we'll go that. But Tony Pollard, it needs a new contract. Like I mentioned this, by the way, last week, and we mentioned this weeks ago, that Malik Davis could be a Cowboy and that it wouldn't shock us. Tony Pollard needs a new contract. The Dallas Cowboys are kind of stuck with Ezekiel Elliott's contract. The Dallas Cowboys also probably won't be super interested in extending Tony Pollard because they've gotten burned by extending a running back already. So they'll probably change there. And if you kind of just connect the dots, I think this was a very obvious pick. Like even on Friday's episode of Locked On Gators, I gave some teams where I was like, I think this team, every team where I said, I think they'll end up with this team is just like, I knew that they met with that team and I think they'd be a good fit. Malik Davis, I said Cowboys. Like that was the only one I got right, but it was the obvious one. It was Malik Davis is going to be a Cowboy if he goes undrafted because he is just he fits exactly what they want to do. He fits that Tony Pollard role to a T, which is like how other NFL teams didn't see that and go, we should snake him just to be spiteful. That happens all the time in the NFC South with the Panthers, Bucks, Saints, and Falcons. Sorry, I forgot for a second. They've been so relevant for so long now. But Malik Davis, I mean, I thought that someone from the NFC East would snake him because it was very clear the Cowboys wanted him, and the Cowboys clearly were like, we don't have to draft him. We could sign him and have him. And if we don't, then so what? He's not going to be this big focal point. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great signing. I do. I hate it because I'm a Giants fan, so I hate it. But I think Malik Davis is one of those guys where we could see him actually make the team or be a practice squad guy for a year and then make the team, which wouldn't shock me either, especially with Tony Pollard's contract. So Malik Davis could be someone that they just stash and keep on their roster. If I'm them, I would keep him on the 53, and I would just be like, hey, man, like we're just going to do what we can to kind of keep you with us because we have big plans for you. But we'll see what happens. But that was an obvious pick. I again, when we look at who went where, like I hate the Bears coaching staff. But Jean Delance could go there and play pretty early, maybe not play immediately, but in a year or two with some development, he could play with the Chicago Bears. Their offensive line is so terrible. Jeremiah Moon probably wasn't going to play this year no matter where he went. At least he's going to one of the best places that develop edge rushers and linebackers. And Malik Davis went to the team that wanted him the most. So they all went to different teams for different reasons. But I like all the thought process that went into their signing. And I like it. And then tomorrow we are going to get into Gators football. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. And we will be back tomorrow with more on your Florida Gators. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. You can find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports. That is WHOLENINE Sports. And I'll see you all tomorrow.